Alright everyone, it's time for everyone's favorite weekly show, the Custom Card Review, a weekly show that I do once every 3 months. So, in this, I'm going to cover a couple of custom cards that you guys have sent in, as well as show one that I've created myself. First up, we'll look over some Gemini support cards. I have a soft spot for Geminis. I actually really like them. So, of course I was going to read some custom support for Gemini monsters. First up, we have Gemini Reborn. Target one Gemini monster in your graveyard, special summon it, and equip it with this card. It is treated as an effect monster and gains its effect. If it would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can destroy this card instead. You can only activate one Gemini Reborn per turn. Alright, so looking over this, Geminis inherently aren't very good. So their support cards are allowed to be a little broken. And I think this one fits the spot really good. It just straight up gets any Gemini monster from your graveyard, special summons it, and gives it their effect. No other downsides. And also, it protects them from being destroyed by, it's by battle and card effect. Yeah, that's good. A one little thing of protection, which they don't need it anymore because they gain the effect. As soon as they're out in the field, they don't need this card to be equipped anymore. It's not like a detriment, kind of like how Monster Reborn would be, where if Monster Reborn is destroyed, the card is also destroyed. This one's the reverse, where it doesn't need to be equipped to him anymore, it just offers them extra protection. Really good. And to top it all off, it has a hard once per turn. That was one of my things immediately I thought of. Is this is an equip spell card that special summons from the graveyard. With no cost. This can be abused, but not if it's a hard once per turn. Hard once per turn, of course, means you can only use a card with this card's name once per turn. And that's it. So, great card. We're starting off this one really well. Next up, we have Gemini Destruction. Destroy, it's a normal trap card. Destroy spell and traps on the field up to the number of Gemini monsters you control. If you control a Gemini monster that is treated as an effect monster and has gained its effects, you can activate this card from your hand. Okay. First up, when I first saw this, I was like, wait, a trap card, destroy spell and traps up to the number of Geminis you control? That's not very good on a trap card. Twin Twisters, MST, those cards are better because they don't require you to have them, specific cards on the field, and you also don't need, to set it for a turn. The second one, you can activate it from your hand if you control Gemini monsters that have gained their effects. That does make it better. It doesn't mean it's a very good card though. There's a hero card called Our Righteous Justice. I think that's what it's called. And it basically allows you to destroy spell and traps on the field up to the number of hero monsters you control. And no one really runs that card. And this card is kind of a worse version of that, since you need to have the Geminis have effects on the field in order to activate this from your hand. Anyways, if there was ways to search this out in its archetype or something, maybe other Gemini support cards that interact with this even more. It's alright. It's not the best thing in the world. Let's go on to the next one. Gemini Counter-Strike. This time it's a counter trap card. Ooh, there's potential for that to be good. When a spell, trap card, or monster effect is activated, banish one normal monster from your graveyard. Negate the activation, and if you do, shuffle that card into the deck. Then, send one Gemini monster from your deck to the graveyard. Okay, this is a good card. Negates are a different story from spell and trap card destroying. Being able to negate anything is generally a really good effect. But it has a cost. You have to banish normal monster from a graveyard, which means it does require setup, even if, Gemini monsters can supply this pretty easily, since all Gemini monsters are treated as normal monsters while in the graveyard. But then it also allows you to selectively mill a Gemini from your deck. That's good. That's a really good effect to just tack on the end of it, because I was thinking he's the first effect, to negate anything, that's a good effect. It needs to do a little bit more than that to see play. And then the second part, milling a card, I don't know. It's okay. Milling a Gemini monster is a good effect, but I don't know if it's good enough. Trap cards they need to be really powerful in order to see play in the metagame. And I don't know if this one would be powerful enough, even if it does negate basically one of anything. Just to show you like the power creep of what the current meta is like. Maybe if its second effect was you could, I don't know, banish it to search, that would make it really good. Actually, you know, this one's fine. It's perfectly balanced. It's also not once per turn, as I can see. Next up, we have another trap card. This time a continuous trap card, Gemini Seal. If you do not control a Gemini monster, destroy this card. All monsters your opponent controls become Gemini monsters, and replace their original effects with this effect. And its effect is, this card is treated as a normal monster while face up on the field. When this card is normal summoned on the field, you can normal summon it to have it become an effect monster with its original effect. Okay, so if you do not control a Gemini monster, destroy this card. All monsters your opponent controls become Gemini monsters. Oh, okay. Okay, I missed that part. So you need to control a Gemini monster in order to use this card, and as long as you control one, it basically negates the effects of all of your opponent's cards and turns them into Gemini monsters, which is so good. That's really good. It's like a skill drain basically, where they can, you know, choose to lose their normal summon in order to gain their original effects back. Man, that's a great card. And it really fits with the theme of Gemini monsters. Wow. Good job on that one. Okay, and I think this is the last one. It's Gemini Descent, quick play spell card. Let's see what this does. If you control Catalyst Field, Catalyst Field is a new Gemini field card they put out. I'm not going to show it on screen, but what it does is you can normal summon level 5 or higher Gemini monsters without tributes. And I think it also gives you one extra normal summon as long as it's used to Gemini summon something. That's the gist of it. Okay, so now let's continue with this effect. If you control Catalyst Field, discard one level 4 or lower Gemini monster. Special summon one Gemini monster from your hand or deck. And if you do, it is treated as an effect monster and gains its effect. Since this card special summons a card from the deck, that automatically gives it a really high power level, especially since there's no level restriction on it, and that Gemini monster gains their effect immediately. And if I'm not remembering correctly, I'm pretty sure there's a Gemini monster with a negate on it. So that's a good effect. But, you know, there's the restrictions on it. You need to control a specific field spell card. You know, that's a good restriction to have. You also need to discard a specific monster, a level 4 or lower Gemini monster, which means you couldn't just play the high level ones with this. You know, those are pretty good restrictions. It's also not once per turn, though. I did notice that, because I have a checklist over here for what I should be checking for these. You know, just to make sure I don't miss anything like I did last time. So, the checklist is basically, is the effect once per turn? Can it be looped with itself? Is it a one card of FTK? And does it only affect attack and defense? That last one is, I'll explain it after this. So anyways, this card is good. Special summon straight from the deck, gives it their effects immediately, and it's a quick play, so it can be used during your opponent's turn as well. Or used during the battle phase. There's so much to do with this, and it's somewhat balanced out by the activation cost of requiring a specific spell card and a specific discard. So, you know, that's good. Very powerful effect, and I think it's somewhat balanced, even if it doesn't have a once per turn on it. I don't think it really needs one. That's probably why it doesn't have one, but okay. So, final score for these, since I go, you know, out of 10. Well, Gemini Reborn was really good. Gemini Seal, very unique card. I love the idea behind it. It really fits within Gemini's very well. Gemini Descent is strong. Counter-Strike and Destruction, not as good, but they're both still good cards anyway. I think I'd give this one a pretty strong score, actually. You know, like a 8.5 out of 10. Pretty great stuff, like almost on a 9. You know, that's how good some of these support cards are. We're fitting within the theme of the thing that's trying to support, while also being somewhat balanced to an extent. Yeah, good stuff. I really love this archetype. Alright, next up we have an Eldritch archetype. This one was sent in by someone from Hardleg Joe's Discord server. I told them, send me some custom cards, and they did. And let's go over these ones. Eldritch God, I am a big fan of like old gods and H.P. Lovecraft, outer gods and stuff like that. So, let's see how these cards work. Oh wait, I was going to explain, why does it have attack and defense? Let me explain that real quick. So I have this checklist, is it once per turn? Because sometimes people will forget to make a card once per turn, which will completely break one of its effects. Can it be looped with itself? Because in the last video, I didn't check that, and turns out one of the cards they made could be looped with itself to cause an FTK. Is it a one-card FTK? Basically goes with the looped in itself kind of thing. And the fourth one is, does it only affect attack and defense? Now this one is on here, not because it'll make the card broken, but because I see this a lot with custom cards, especially ones that are like sent in or just ones I've seen, where people are trying to make, archetypes based around something in their head, like a book or a movie or a TV show. So they give them effects appropriate to that, and generally they give them attack increasing effects. Like, it'll be just a really subpar card, level 4, 1500 attack, and its effects will be, if it has this other specific card in the field, it gains 300 attack, which is not good. And this is pretty common. It's mainly just by people who don't, they're not as, what's the word for it? Kind of new to creating custom cards, I guess, or haven't played very much Yu-Gi-Oh, but they wanted to create custom cards anyway. New people, yeah, I guess that's the word for it. People are kind of new to Yu-Gi-Oh, where equip cards still seem like a good idea. But with that, I'm probably going to add more to this list as I do more of these custom card videos. So let's look at High Priest to the Elder God. If you control a face-up Eldritch space, let's see, is there an Eldritch space card in here? Yes, there is. Yeah, I will. I'll just go to Eldritch space first. Once per turn, during either player's turn, if an Elder God monster is sent to the graveyard, either by card effect or by battle, you can discard one card and pay 500 life points. Special summon an Elder God monster with a different name and attack equal to or less than the monster that was sent to the graveyard. Wait, what? Discard one card and pay 500 life points. Special summon an Elder God monster with a different name and attack equal to or less than the monster that was sent to the graveyard. From where? Where do you special summon this card from? Elder God monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects once per turn, and only once that turn. So, if they Darkhold twice, they wouldn't... So only once that turn. So like, if a card had another card on it that prevented from being destroyed, like Safe Zone, and they Darkhold, and then they Regeki'd immediately after, would it not be protected by Safe Zone since it only protects them once? Just once total? I think that's what it's trying to say here. If this face-up card is sent from the field to the graveyard, special summon an Elder God monster whose level is less than or equal to the amount of Elder God cards in your graveyard. And for the rest of this turn, it is unaffected by card effects and cannot be destroyed by battle. Okay, but special summon it from where? It doesn't specify where you're special summoning these cards from. Is it from the deck? Because that's really good if that's the case. Is it from your hand? That's not as good. Is it from the graveyard? That's like the middle ground. I don't know where they're special summoned from. So let's go back over here to High Priest to the Elder God. If you control a face-up Eldritch space, you can special summon this card from your hand, or from your graveyard by paying 500 life points. Let's see, if you control Eldritch space, special summon this card from your hand or graveyard, which is not once per turn. Okay, that's a really good effect. Once per turn, during either player's turn, you can pay 500 life points and send one Elder God card from your deck to your graveyard. And if you do, this card gains 500 attack. Wait. During either player's turn, you can pay 500, send an Elder God card from your deck to your graveyard, and then this card gains 500 attack. Okay, that's also a really good effect. just mill any Elder God card from your deck. If this card is sent to the graveyard, either by your opponent's card effect or by battle, you can add as many Elder God cards from your graveyard that were sent there by this card's effect during this duel to your hand. That's also a really good effect. Alright, it's 3 for 3 on having really good effects. So its first effect is you can just special summon it from the graveyard whenever you want by paying 500 life points, as long as you control the field spell card, as many times per turn as you want. So as long as you have the life points, you can just bring this card out continuously. You can also, spell speed 2, mill one of these cards to the graveyard. And if this card is destroyed, you can just add all those cards to your hand. That's amazing pluses. This card is completely broken, would be banned immediately. Okay, next on, with all the graveyard interaction, I'm going to assume the field spell card, Eldritch Space, is special summoning them from the graveyard. Since, it doesn't specify where it's special summoning monsters from. Since this guy is very involved with the graveyard. Next up, we have Cultists of the Elder God. It's a level 4 Fiend Tuner. Whoa. A tuner, level 4 monster with 2100 attack. Okay, it better have some kind of restriction on its summoning requirements. Let's see, once per turn, while you control a face-up Elder God monster, you can pay 500 life points to special summon this card from your hand or graveyard. Let me read the rest of this card first before I talk about that broken first effect. Once per turn, you can pay 500 life points, and when you do, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, and send to the graveyard as many Elder God cards as possible. And when you do, target cards your opponent's field equal to the number of Elder God cards you sent, and remove them from play. Okay, that's really good. Just like, excavate the top 5 cards of your deck, and if there's any Elder God cards, just banish that many cards your opponent controls. Wow. Okay. Let's see, where's the next effect at? Target. Next one. Add the other cards to your hand. Oh shit. As long as this card remains face up on the field, cards removed from play stay removed from play. Okay, so I am going to assume the effect is cards that are removed from play cannot be moved to other locations. Kind of like Necro Valley, but for removed from play. Okay, so this card's broken. It is really good with no downsides. So first off, it's a level 4 tuner that can special summon itself from the graveyard with no downsides. That itself means it would see play. It does have the effect where it needs to have an Elder God, so I guess that does limit it somewhat. But it's also only once per turn, so if you have 3 copies of these cards in your graveyard, you can special summon all 3 of them. Because it's not a hard once per turn. It doesn't once per turn the effect, total for that turn. It's just once per turn per card. So 3 copies, which can be sent to the graveyard with the first card. That's really good. You only have to pay 500 life points, which is like nothing. Once per turn, pay 500, and if you do, excavate the top 5 cards of your deck, and then send all the Elder God cards to the graveyard, and then banish your opponent's cards. Wait, no, is it send them? And send to the graveyard as many Elder God cards as possible, and when you do, target cards your opponent's field equal to the number of Elder God cards you send to remove from play. Add the other cards to your hand. So if you don't have any Elder God cards, you can just draw 5 cards. Wow. Wow. And then its last effect. And the other cards, lock down on banished cards. Okay, this is like a godlike card, which would be banned immediately. Now on to the next one. Second hand to the Elder God. So far, I'm really loving this. These are broken effects without the cards themselves being like ridiculous attack powers and having unaffected by everything effects. Like, these cards can be destroyed. This is a really good example of broken cards that don't, aren't unstoppable boss monsters. I like them so far. Second hand to the Elder God. You can special, let's see, what level is it? Level 6, I think? Yeah. 2700 attack for level 6. That's kind of high for level 6. But then again, the other guy was really high for being a level 4 tuner. You can special summon this card by sending 1 High Priest to the Elder God from your hand from your field to the graveyard. And if you do, you can send 1 Elder God card from your hand to the graveyard. And if you do, you can send one Elder God card from your hand to the graveyard. Okay, it's not a mandatory effect. I don't know why you'd want to send one from your hand to the graveyard. I mean, I don't know. The other card was able to special summon itself from your graveyard, so... Kind of reminds me of that really bad G-Nex Synchro monster. It has an effect where you can discard a card when it's summoned. And that's the effect, is to discard. It doesn't do anything else. Okay, so once per turn, if this card battled, you can send the top card of your deck to the graveyard. And if it's an Elder God card, this card can attack again. And if it does, your opponent must discard a random card from their hand. When this card is sent from the field to the graveyard or by battle, you can special summon one Elder God monster from your graveyard except this card. Okay, so if it attacks, or is attacked, because it says if it's just battled, you can send the top card of your deck to the graveyard, and if it's an Elder God card, this card can attack again. And if it does, your opponent must discard... Okay, so it doesn't matter if the attack goes through or not, just if it is able to attack again with this effect, your opponent discards a card from their hand, as long as it was an Elder God card, you know. That seems pretty reasonable, I guess. Its special summon requirement is to send a specific card from your hand to the graveyard, which is pretty reasonable, even if it does have kind of a high attack for a level 6 monster. And its last effect, it basically floats when being removed from the field. From your graveyard, except this card. Yeah, since all these cards have to do with the graveyard. You know, this one's not broken like the other two. It's just kind of okay, I guess. Like, you know, the other two cards, completely broken. This card, it's alright. It's okay, I guess. It's not the best thing in the world. And then Eldritch Space. Coming back to it, I'm going to assume the place you special summon from is the graveyard, since all the other ones have to do with the graveyard. So, with that in mind, once per turn during either player's turn, if an Elder God monster is sent to the graveyard, either by card effect or battle, you can discard one card and pay 500 life points to special summon an Elder God monster with a different name and attack equal to or less than the monster that was sent to the graveyard. From the graveyard, I assume. Which is a decent effect, actually. Elder God monster you kill cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects once per turn and only that turn. Okay. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, special summon Elder God monster whose level is less than or equal to the number of Elder God monsters in your graveyard. And for the rest of the turn is unaffected by card effects and cannot be destroyed by battle. So I assume it special summons that one from the graveyard as well. I'd assume, but since it doesn't specify one, I kind of have to throw that card out. It's, it kind of really needs... The card is incomplete. That's what I was looking for. So, final thoughts on the Eldritch archetype, or Outer God. Eldritch Space? No, what's it called? Elder God. Why is it called Eldritch Space if they're all Elder God? Whatever. It's not unusual for a field spell card not to share the name with its archetype. So, final thoughts. 2 of the cards are completely broken. One of them's okay, and the other one is unplayable. That's just because it's missing where it special summons from. So, with this, I do really like how broken those 2 cards are. They're ridiculously broken, and a good example of why you need to add in hard once per turns. And, you know, can it loop? Yes. Is it once per turn? No. Can it cause a 1-card FTK? Kind of. Super strong. I'll give it 5 out of 10. You know. I have to because one of the cards is unplayable. And, you know, 2 of them are just ridiculously broken. I did enjoy them though. Those were great. Send me more archetypes like that. Okay, and next up, I'm going to go over a couple of one-offs. So this first one is called Pot of Pots of Pots. It's a quick play spell card, which has the effect where you can choose 2 cards from your deck and banish your entire deck and hand face down, min 1, except those 2 chosen cards. And if you do, draw 2 cards. You can only activate this card if your opponent has no empty monster card zones and controls at least 1 extra monster zone card. At least 1 extra monster card zone. The cards banished by this effect cannot leave the banished zone. Okay, so basically, you draw 2 cards, any 2 cards from your deck, and you get rid of everything else. So you only have those 2 cards to try to win with. And it can only be activated if your opponent controls a full field of monsters. Overly balanced. If I were to make it even more overly balanced, I would add you can only use this effect once per duel. You know, just to really slap on the terrible viability of it. I mean, if you're gonna do this, like, you know, those cards cannot leave the banish zone, I would probably say for this turn or something, because having a restriction on the banish zone is kind of difficult from a lingering effect, you know, since this card doesn't need to stay on the field in order for them to stay banished. So if I were to, you know, fix this card, which is obviously a joke card, I would make it spell speed 4, so your opponent couldn't negate the effect, you know, considering what it does. I would keep the banish everything, you know, choose any 2 cards you want, and I don't know about your opponent controlling a full field of monsters. Basically, if your opponent controls more monsters than you do, I think it's better because it stops it from being a win more. You know, you have an established field and then use this to get the only 2 cards you need in order to win immediately. It would still kind of be in the, you know, your opponent is ahead of you and you're using this one to try to come back. But also, it would help burn decks, so I don't know. I like my suggestions. Make it spell speed 4. Your opponent can't chain to it. Make the cards can't leave the banish zone a lingering effect for 1 turn only, instead of forever. And make it so your opponent just needs to control more monsters than you do. And there you go. You got a card with this effect. Oh, and once per duel, of course. You have to have that. That's what you add to cards that you think their effects might be a little too strong. Once per duel, spell speed 4, lingering effect only lasts for 1 turn, and your opponent just needs to have more monsters than you do. And there you go, a search of any 2 cards from your deck. Then you draw them immediately. And if you don't win within the next turn, or your opponent's turn, you lose because you're going to mill out. So, I like it. I do like the idea behind it, as long as you make the changes I suggested. Alright, next one is Megumin. I love me some Konosuba. So, of course, I was going to read this one-off card. It's a spellcaster type monster, who's level 10, I think. Has 0 attack and defense. If you control a Kazuma, you can special summon this card from your deck or graveyard. So, there's no cost to this, and it's not once per turn. And from your deck, that's really good. I don't know what this Kazuma card is, but I assume it's probably a useless one if you're going to go based off the anime. Once per turn, during your main phase, you can destroy all cards on your opponent's side of the field, and you lose 500 life points for every card destroyed by this effect. Then, send this card to the graveyard. Any battle damage involving this card is doubled. So basically, the way this card was meant to be played was you special summon it to destroy all your opponent's cards, and then you take a lot of life point damage and you lose the card. Because in the anime, this character was able to use a very powerful explosion ability, but only once per day, and after she used it, she was useless. She couldn't even walk anymore. So, you know, it fits in line with that, except for the fact that it doesn't have a once per turn on its special summon from the deck or graveyard. So you can infinitely recycle this card from the graveyard. You can just use Cannon Soldier to burn your opponent. This is why once per turns are important. And also, if you're going to special summon a card from the deck, it needs very heavy restrictions. Kind of like the Gemini card from earlier. Okay, and finally we're going to have my custom card. I have Shadow, Magispector of the Burning Abyss. It's a pendulum monster, level 3, wind spellcaster type. It cannot be targeted or destroyed by your opponent's card effects. So just like the Magispector support, Magispector blanket protection that all the Magispector cards have. If you control no spell and trap cards, you can special summon this card from your hand. So it's a Burning Abyss effect. If this card is sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can add 1 Shadow, Magispector, or Burning Abyss monster from your deck to your hand, which is the Shadow effect, where they gain effects if they're sent to the graveyard by a card effect. So, as you may have noticed, it's just a combination of 3 archetypes. I thought this would be fun. So it supports Magispectors, Shadows, and Burning Abyss. Kind of like Zephyros cards, what they were supposed to be. So, for all three of those archetypes. The reason it's a level 3 spellcaster who's wind type is because all Burning Abyss monsters are level 3. All Magispector monsters are wind spellcaster types, and they need to be those two things in order for their support cards to work. Whereas Burning Abyss and Shaddolls, they don't necessarily need to be, you know, a specific type. I mean, Burning Abyss, they want to be fiend type, but they don't really need to be, whereas Magispectors do need to be spellcaster wind type. And I mean, there's already Shadow monsters that are spellcaster type, and Shaddolls already are totally fine with there being different attributes in their deck, so it works. And the Pendulum Scales are in line with the Pendulum Scales that a Magispector card usually has. None of the Magispector Pendulum cards have Pendulum effects, so that's just left blank. And its attack and defense are just kind of standard, pretty high for level 3. So it supports all three of them, and would only really, you know, mess up. Actually, would it mess up Burning Abyss? Actually, I think this would be fine with Burning Abyss, because it's technically a Burning Abyss monster. And those cards have an effect where they're destroyed if you control a monster who's not Burning Abyss. And this card is Burning Abyss. So, you know, it works with that too. Unless I'm missing something. The only thing it's missing from these cards is the fact that most Magispectors search when they're summoned, and all of the Shaddolls also have a flip effect, which this doesn't have. So instead, it just has a float into any card if it's sent to the graveyard by card effect, which means, like, from the deck or from the hand. If it's destroyed on the field, it's going to go to the extra deck because it's a Pendulum monster. So, you know, balance it out. I love this idea of just combining 3 cards into an archetype, and I'm probably just going to be doing this for the next couple of videos because I have a couple of other ideas for stuff like that. Okay, so quick little tip, since, you know, people are sending in images and they're of different varying quality. So if you want a good quality custom card, you can just make it in Dueling Book, and then when you have the custom card screen open, literally just click on the image in the middle of the screen, you know, your custom card, and it brings up a secret window. I don't know why they don't show this anywhere, but I learned this on a custom card Discord. And it was very helpful. You just literally click on the card in the middle of the screen, and it brings up a new tab where it shows the card by itself, you know, without any of the other clutter. And then you can click on the little camera in the top right-hand corner, and it will show you just the card itself, so you can just copy it. And there's no need to take a screenshot in this way. You can just have the image and save it to your computer. Very helpful stuff. Wish I knew about it earlier, so I thought I would mention it here. And like, speaking of custom card Discords, there is one. Someone got into contact with me about their custom card Discord and wanted to know if I could talk about it on a video. And I told them only if I took a look at it and I liked it. And I took a look at it, and it's pretty good. They hold like custom card tournaments. They only allow you to use approved cards, you know, so people can't use a whole bunch of broken cards. It's a really good system. I like it. I'll have a link for it in the video description, and you can just join it there. Tell them I sent you. And also, if you want, you know, a chance for your cards to be featured in one of these videos, just send them to me on Twitter. Nowhere else. I don't review custom cards if they're sent somewhere else. You know, if you try to PM me on Discord or on an email, it's not going to happen. Twitter only. So, until next time.